Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. If you remember at the beginning of last year, Lorna Slater was castigated, quite rightly, for taking out and hiring a private boat to get across onto the Isle of Rum, rather than just using the ferry that the normal people have to use. The ferry would have cost £4.75. She ended up spending something like £15,000. Well, I say she did, the taxpayer did. Because she needed to get onto Rum. It was an emergency, and the ferry that the normal people have to use was rather inconvenient. The reason she was doing it is because there was a big sale of Kinloch Castle, and it was meant to be pushed through. It's the only sort of major thing on Rum. It needs a lot of repairs and so forth. But it was looking to be redeveloped, sold and redeveloped, get someone come in and really sort of spruce it up. Well, the sale fell through, of course. And the reason is, basically, Lorna Slater got involved. Nobody ever trusts her. But everyone is running to her defence now to say, no, it wasn't Lorna Slater. She had very little to do with the failure. Well, very little to do with the failure means she was involved with the failure. But I suspect very little to do means totally to do. Because everything is spin and bullshit, isn't it? Everything is a lie. So let's take a look at this and why the £15,000 boat trip failed to do what it was meant to do. But then nobody's surprised. Here goes. So, Kinloch Castle Delphi study launched on Isle of Rum. And there, of course, is Kinloch Castle. Very nice. But that's cold in the winter, though. Biodiversity Minister Lorna Slater said she had very little involvement in the collapse sale of crumbling A-listed Hebridean Castle to a multi-millionaire Tory donor. Kinloch Castle on the inner Hebridean island of Rum was one of the most luxurious private residences of its time upon completion in 1900. Yeah, well, back then, of course, it was well looked after. You'd probably had 40 indoor staff, 50 to 70 outdoor staff. You'd have your whole family living there. It was a wonderful thing. And, of course, Tesco's were very few and far between back then. So anyway, it was being owned by the heritage body Nature Scott since 1957 and operated as a hostel until 2015 before it was closed. And it's now in need of around £10 million of repairs. Jeremy Hoskin, a city financier and former Conservative Party donor, was in late-stage negotiations to buy the 19th century pile and put it in the hands of a trust last year before he pulled out of a deal in March. Miss Hoskins accused the Scottish Greens of crushing a conservation project and blamed Miss Slater for his decision to pull out the buyout, describing it as a horrible process. And I've got to be honest, anything that would involve Slater is going to be awful. Because rather than just going, okay, this is a brilliant deal, we're going to have this, he can buy it, they can invest, they can get the repairs, it can go into a trust. What we'll do is we'll just sign off on that, let that happen. A little bit of oversight at the end, job's a good one. But no, this is Lorna Slater, this is Jeffrey. She has to micromanage every single aspect because she's got nothing else to do in her endless boring days as a minister of bugger all. And so she interferes and she changes and she micromanages and she does and she does and she does. And in the end, so many things were put on that this guy just went, do you know what? It's not worth the bollocks. I'm walking away. And it collapses. So yes, it was entirely Jeffrey's fault. But of course, everyone's got to run and rush to her defence. It can't possibly be her fault, can it? Oh, no siree, Bob, because she's brilliant at everything. It was reported that the Minister for Biodiversity paused the sale in November after a number of concerns were made by islanders, including access to land surrounding the castle. However, in a letter to the Highland MSP Kate Forbes, Miss Slater said she had very little involvement in the previous proposed sale, positive or negative. Well, she would say that, wouldn't she? She has commissioned a Delphi study to garner the views of islanders, and heritage group Kinloch Castle Friends Association will also be consulted. Well, instead of actually having this thing bought, refurbed and put into a trust, it's now just left there to fall apart, fall into ruin, and generally go to rack and ruin. It won't be any good. This is what happens. Stop letting Jeffrey get her little hands on things, and things might happen. Ewan MacDonald, chairman of the association, said, "We have absolutely no doubt that Kinloch Castle could be a huge asset to the small isles. You could have a nature tourism, marine tourism, sailing, guided walking tours. We know there's quite a lot of interest in it and new people are popping up all the time, but not from the perspective of purchasing it. It does need a lot of work, and what we had was a wealthy multimillionaire, a self-made man with Highland connections who had spent half his time in Strontian and wanted to do some good, and I think that's what we need. Someone with money who will get it restored." So the people there are very much pro for this guy coming in, buying it, refurbing it, putting it into a trust, and then using it as a hotel, hostel, tourist centre, that sort of thing. Putting life into the island, bringing an economy in, bringing money in. But no, not Jeffrey. No. They say it needs to be run as a commercial business. Our business plan showed it could be self-sufficient once restored properly. He said visitor numbers on Rum were twice as high as they are now when the castle was in use, because it could sleep 50 and the island is short of accommodation. And if you can get that thing up and running and get people in, spending money, visiting the island, and not just spending money in there, but going to the little shoppy up the road, things like that, it's money coming in. It creates jobs. It's important. Anyway, meanwhile, Egg and Muck and Canna have had a 50% increase in their visitor numbers. When they closed the castle, they substituted it with a 20-bed bunkhouse, which has been run very, very well. But it doesn't suit everyone. I wouldn't want to sleep in a bunkhouse. I want a room. I went over to... Well, don't want to. I went to CERN, and I was supposed to be staying in shared accommodation. And I took one look at it. I went, no, and I found the nearest hotel. I've put myself into a hotel. I don't stay here. I don't do shit. I snore badly. My wife will tell you this. I can't share a room with anyone. Not for my benefit, but for theirs. Honestly, I snore like a wounded wildebeest. Awful. Anyway, it's very embarrassing too. Anyway, when they closed the castle, they've done that. We said it's tourism that is going to give the island life. They said, and it might be that nature tourism, bird tourism, and geological tourism, all sorts, money in, create an economy. But of course, it won't. It won't happen because micromanaging Lorna says, "Oh, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and I need to be involved. I want to do this." And you have to ask why. Why is this woman involving herself so deeply, making so many stupid decisions, other than the fact that she literally has nothing to do? They don't want to give her anything because they know she'll screw it up royally. Everything she's touched, every single thing has failed. That's her legacy, isn't it? Lorna, the failure of Holyrood. Coming up. I don't suppose anyone's surprised Lorna's failed, but it would be nice if she got something right once. Just as a little sweet memory for when she's no longer an MSP, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and I will speak to you later. Bye.